Here today for another episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Jordan. Joining me today is one of our Cooking Matters volunteers, Chef Jeff.
Hello.
So normally a Cooking Matters class is a nutrition-based cooking class that's in person. Classes meet once a week for 2 hours for a total of 6 weeks. Classes normally feature a chef and a nutrition educator that work together to teach our participants how to prepare a healthy, affordable, delicious meal, as well as a little bit of nutrition. So today we're going to follow that same format except virtually. Today, Chef Jeff will be showing us how to make a Southwest fresh vegetable chili, which is his recipe. So thank you, Chef Jeff, for this beautiful recipe.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just like every week, of course, we do have another survey for you all to take. We do have that in the description box of our video, and then we will throw that in the live chat in just a few minutes here as well. So please take that survey. We love hearing from our viewers to see what we can do better. So please go ahead and take that. For the survey, you will need a code, which I have right here. Today's program code is E101831. And again, that program code and the survey link will be in the description box, and we'll also put it in the live chat. So we thank you in advance for that feedback. It really helps us to continue this work in the community and make our videos a little better every time. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with today's recipe. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chef Jeff.
All right, thank you very much. I'm glad to see everybody here. So I created this recipe many years ago, back in the 90s, actually. I was looking for vegetable chili recipes, and all I could find either at the grocery store, and of course they didn't have internet back then, so it's just at the grocery store. So, you know, if you look at the can, they're all canned vegetables. It's not really, and they're just beans. You could buy a 3-bean chili, a 6-bean chili. The vegetables that are going to be in there are typically celery, carrots, and onions. And that just sounded really boring to me. And it was in a can or it was in a jar. So I created this recipe a long time ago. My friend said, you should sell this. It was really, really good. I thought about it, but anyway, it changed my mind. But this has fresh vegetables in it. So what I like to do is let me see if I got the camera on here. So we have some green bell pepper that I've put through the food processor, and I've added one jalapeno, a de-seeded jalapeno, taken the red meat out, the same with the green bell pepper, and I put it through the processor and just kind of minced it up. Here we have summer crookneck squash, zucchini. This is cauliflower. Now the thing about the cauliflower, after I'd washed it off and I started cutting it up, you know, I started to throw out the leaves. And I cut out the core and I started to throw out the core too. I was like, wait a minute. The leaves are really good to eat, fresh or cooked, okay? I've never seen any recipes that call for cauliflower leaves. So I just bit into it, and it's really nice and flavorful. It's kind of like maybe a little bit of horseradish taste to it. It's kind of a peppery bite to it. And then I bit into the core that I was going to throw out. It's like, that is the best part right there. Just like on broccoli. I love the stems of the broccoli. I shave off the outsides and I eat the stalk of the broccoli. It is so good. And same with this cauliflower. So please don't throw it away. Don't throw those leaves away, use them up. And the same with the core. And of course, here we have a couple of carrots and some broccoli. And I had a yam in the refrigerator. So I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and add this yam. So I've already measured these out, and they're 1 cup portion of each one of these fresh vegetables, okay?
So Chef Jeff, if we don't have a food processor, I mean, can we just throw it in a blender? Can we just dice it up really fine? Is that all we need to do for this recipe?
Okay, that's a good question. See, the reason why I did with this cut, this kind of a mince, is because I wanted to kind of reflect ground beef. Okay, not all chilies are made with ground beef. Some of them use different cuts of meat or in larger pieces of meat as well. So you can go with the larger dice if you want to do that. If you don't have a food processor, just go with a larger dice, maybe at the size of a nickel. Okay. The difference is in cooking time. The larger the piece of the vegetable, the longer it's going to take to the desired doneness that you want. So this is not going to take very long at all. This recipe, this vegetable chili recipe, is opposite of what you would do for beef or other protein recipe, because you always start out by browning the ground beef or browning the other meats, right? You start up with that cooking process, and then you're making the sauce and adding it to the meats that you're cooking. This recipe, you start off with the sauce, okay? Because you want to build those flavors up in the sauce, and then we're going to add the vegetables at the end and let them cook for about 5 minutes until the desired doneness that you like. Like I said before, I like my vegetables to be fresh tasting. I want to be able to see them and taste them. I don't like to have overcooked vegetables. That's my personal preference, though. Okay. So in this recipe, I've already done some onion. I've mixed about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, depending on size, in there. Got that in there. I've got a can of tomato puree. This is the 28-ounce size can. I have over here some petite diced tomatoes. I'm straining them off just in case I want to use this juice for later on. Okay, I might need to add it to thin out the sauce if the chili is too thick. And also over here, if you want to add some beans for some protein, I've washed off these black beans and straining them. You want to wash them off until all of the foam, you start washing the black beans off or any kind of bean off. There's lots of sulfur in there, so it's just going to bubble up, and so it's going to add flavor to it. And I don't want that flavor in these black beans. I'm trying to have it as clean of a flavor as possible. And also I've opened up this 6-ounce can of tomato paste, and here we have already measured out our spices. So we have some chili powder right here, and this is the smoked chili powder, some paprika. This is ancho chili. This is onion powder, cumin, oregano, and some cayenne pepper. So I've already pre-measured these out for the speed of the class. Okay. So first thing we want to do is get our pan where hot, and I'm using a Teflon because it's not going to stick. It's just if you use a regular metal pan or something else, this might stick in there, especially the tomato paste. These onions might stick in there, so you just gotta, this is a recipe we have to attend it. You got to keep stirring this around. So I'll get this hot a little bit. Then I'll add.
Chef Jeff has everything set out, and as you'll notice that Chef Jeff has all of his stuff set out. We've talked about mise en place before, but as Chef Jeff was saying, we have to attend to this recipe. So it's going to be really important that you have all of your ingredients ready like Chef Jeff does today, so then you can keep attending to the chili. So have your mise en place ready, have everything set out, have your mess in place, as we like to say in Cooking Connected.
Mm-hmm. I like that phrase. I like that. That's pretty cute. You can use some vegetable spray if you want to if you can use a metal surface, like aluminum or stainless steel pot, you can use some of that. I'm trying to create, this is a gluten-free and a fat-free recipe. Okay. And it might be even considered vegan.
Yeah.
I have to look at that.
We were using any animal products today. Our protein is coming from those beans, so that's really great protein. We don't need any other animal products, I believe. Vegan recipe.
Sizzle. That's always a good sign. Smell the onions and the garlic. So let's let that cook. I'm going to cover it up just a little bit for a minute or two because we want it to sweat to release some of the water inside of the onions. That's going to help us cook. So we've got some water down there. It's good to go. So that one's ready. So now what we're going to do, this is an important step. We're going to add the tomato paste right now, because what we want to do is cook out the acids that are in the tomato paste. That adds a lot of the canned flavor. And we want to try to age this sauce. So we'll cook out, we will just keep sauteing this tomato paste because don't cover it up right now, because the acids will stay trapped and they'll fall right back into the dish itself. So leave it uncovered right now.
All right, so Chef Jeff, we do have a question from one of our viewers. Because without oil, how do you tell the pot is hot enough before you put the onions in?
I held, I'll go ahead and do this. I'm sorry if you could not see this. I held my hand right about here, about 6 inches above the heating surface itself. That's how I could tell. Okay. You can also add, just wet your hands and with water and just sprinkle the moisture or the water into the skillet itself or the cooking surface.
Awesome.
Like I said, you got to keep stirring this around even for a Teflon skillet, because it's going to have hot and cold points all around it. This is only like a $50 one. It's not a really expensive cooking wok. So I'm going to keep stirring it around. And next thing what we're going to do is I'm going to add all of the spices together, because I want to build up the flavors in the tomato paste as well. Okay, so that's cooked for a while. So I'm going to add just all the spices, sprinkle them around. And you can use, I said, you know, I think I said ancho. You don't have to use ancho. You can use chipotle, arbol, or neither one of them if you don't want to. So watch out for this part, because like I said, oh wow, all those flavors are sprouting up in my nostrils and smelling really good. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I don't want it to cook too fast. I'm smelling all those delicious Hispanic flavors. It smells so good right now. Kind of flatten it out so that the tomato paste and all the ingredients, the spices, come in contact with the surface, okay? And you can add a little bit of water if you want to, if it's a little bit too thick, but I purposely saved some of this diced tomato broth. I'm gonna add a little bit of that right now. Go ahead and turn it back up to medium. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to add this tomato puree. You can add crushed tomatoes if you want to, or diced tomatoes or whole tomatoes, and just use your spoon or whatever, your kitchen utensil, and cut into the tomatoes. Give this a stir around. Like I said, you do not, since we're not using any oil, you just got to be careful with the cooking temperature and not scorching the bottom of it. We got it boiling definitely, so I'm going to turn it down just a little bit.
So if you have everything prepared like Chef Jeff did, you know, this will be a quick, easy recipe. But as Jeff was saying, it's definitely a recipe you need to make sure you're stirring and attending to.
Yes, you do. And you can do the same thing with, you can change the ingredients to say Italian ingredients instead of using Southwestern, or adding Burberry for like an Ethiopian dish as well. Or, you know, different kinds of curries. for Indian food, Middle Eastern food.
Absolutely. Recipes are guidelines, so you can adjust them a little bit to, your family's tastes and what spices you prefer as well. So this would be kind of a fun recipe to experiment with, for sure.
Yes, it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the beans. Stir them in. When I worked at an Italian restaurant, which we had lots of red sauces, white chef's jackets were like magnets to red sauces, and it stains big time. So I've added that. I'm going to add my diced tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead. I'll wait on that one because it's about time to add the vegetables. Like I said, this is a fresca, not the drink fresca, but this is like a fresh painting kind of a chili. You don't want to cook it too long. So other meat chilies you want to cook for a longer time. So I'm going to go ahead and add the vegetables now. And like I said, I like to have my vegetables kind of al dente, kind of crispy. So I'm not going to cook this very long. Of course, they're going to cook at different rates, especially anyway, because here we got carrots. They take a whole lot longer to cook than say the squashes and the peppers, but that's fine. Okay, so there's that.
So, Chef Jeff, what other vegetables could you add to this chili?
Okay, you can add cabbage if you want to. Gosh, what else?
Already a lot of vegetables.
I was going to add. I know this. I'm thinking. I was going to add some daikon. I had some daikon, but I thought, oh no, I've got enough vegetables in here already, so this will be fine. But different. You can add eggplant. What else? Rutabagas, beets.
It's a good time to go to your local farmer's market and check out what they have. You can make a fresh vegetable chili out of it. So that's kind of fun. So check out the local farmer's markets in your area and see what you can add to this chili.
Okay, so this is looking really good. So I'm going to finish it off with this sauce. I'm going to keep stirring. So Jordan, if you want to talk about some nutrition.
Absolutely. Thank you. So this is an absolutely beautiful recipe. We're excited to see the end. But today, before we end, I just wanted to talk a little bit about seasoning our foods with herbs and spices. So you saw Chef Jeff add all of those beautiful spices to this chili and not a whole lot of salt. So when you're seasoning your food with spices and herbs is a healthy way to increase flavor and also cut down on the salt in your food. Salt is definitely an essential nutrient for our body. It's but only in relatively small amounts. So sodium helps our body maintain fluids, but it also plays an essential role in how our nerves work and our muscles work. So we need salt in our diet, but not too much is key. So why should we avoid salt? According to the World Health Organization, high sodium consumption and insufficient potassium intake can contribute to high blood pressure, and it can also increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. So definitely some things that we want to avoid. Dietary guidelines for Americans as adults eat about or limit their sodium to about 2,300 milligrams per day. So this is equivalent to only a teaspoon of salt per day. The average American consumes about 3,400 milligrams of salt per day. So, we're over consuming the salt a little bit, and we don't want to increase our risk for things like heart disease and stroke. So cutting back on salt may be something that we would consider. There are lots of things we can do to cut back salt in our diet. As we're doing in this recipe, we're seasoning with lots of herbs and spices. Play around with all of those herbs out there and all those spices to flavor your food the way that you like it and the way that your family likes it. Of course, be wary of like spice blends. So when you're in the store and you see like a blend, make sure you turn that around and make sure there's no salt. Some of spice blends do add salt in there. So that's something that we want to avoid. Get a garlic powder as opposed to a garlic salt. So just make sure you're watching which herbs and spices you're picking. Make sure you're reading those labels always. You can also reduce consumption of convenience foods. So we've talked about convenience foods quite a bit. Our frozen packaged foods, our fast foods. These foods tend to be really high in sodium. So frozen foods are really typically high in sodium. Fast foods are as well. So avoiding or at least reducing consumption of those foods can reduce your salt intake. So we can, cook at home. Of course, at home is a great way to reduce the sodium in your diet. We can look for reduced sodium canned options. So like today we're using a reduced sodium or no salt added tomatoes in our recipe. Look for beans that are reduced salt or no salt added options. A lot of times it'll say right on the can up front. You can also compare brands in the store. So when you're looking at like soups, for instance, compare the brands on the nutrition facts label and see which label contains less salt. So make sure you're comparing brands, make sure you're looking at those labels. And sure you're looking for, reduced salt or no salt added options. Of course, sometimes we like to say if those things are on sale and they're not reduced sodium, go ahead and get that sale. We always mention the rinsing options. So rinsing your beans off if they're a full sodium option and getting rid of some of that salt and preservatives on the product. So that's a great way. Jeff was just telling us to rinse until you don't see that foam on the top anymore. So as soon as you stop seeing all those bubbles when you're rinsing your can of beans, that's when you can stop rinsing. Some other things that you can do is think about your condiment choices. So soy sauce, ketchup, olives, pickles, all these things are high in sodium. So where you can reduced sodium option, make sure you look for those items. So there are reduced sodium soy sauces out there. You can also, of course, substitute. So if there's another condiment that's maybe less salt, that's something else to consider. And finally, taste your food before you add salt. So when you're sitting down at the table with your family, just go ahead and taste your food. If you do find that you need to add salt, just add a little bit right on top. So when you're cooking, sometimes you add a lot of salt in and you can't taste that flavor. If you add a little bit right on top, you can taste it a little more readily. So just add a little bit on top. Of course, always remember you can't take away. So just continuously taste your food and season it the way you prefer. But first, before you add anything, make sure you always taste your food to see if you actually need the salt. Sometimes it can just be a habit to just toss a little salt on the top. So make sure you taste your food first. All right, how's our chili looking, Jeff?
I think it's ready. It looks pretty good to me. We've been letting it kind of simmer for about 5 minutes. I want to make sure that the vegetables are cooked. So I'm going to turn it up just a little bit, give it a couple more stirs. Smelling really good. And so, the first thing, in the recipe, and I've never tried this before when I've done this, I could have taken all those finely minced vegetables and put them on a baking pan and then roasted them in the oven. So that way you would have a roasted vegetable chili for some extra flavor.
Absolutely. This recipe at the end also says all of the different ways that you can serve it as well. noticed nachos. If you're making nachos, you can add a few extra vegetables on top, or like a baked potato with chili on it. Yeah. Lots of different options for serving. You don't just have to do a bowl of chili. You can, throw some on top of a baked potato with a little bit of that Greek yogurt for a sour cream substitute. We always like to mention that. Try Greek yogurt instead of sour cream. A little bit more protein and a little less calories.
Sorry.
Taste testing.
You ready? Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Turn this off. Look at that.
Oh my goodness, that looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely beautiful recipe.
Nice and colorful, you know?
Yeah.
Corn would be a good one in here as well. Good substitute.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned, you can garnish with a little bit of that Greek yogurt. And it's ready to go. That is a beautiful recipe to add a few extra vegetables.
I do have a little bit of shredded cheddar, or you can use mozzarella, or good Mexican cheese, Hispanic cheese, whatever you want. And I have a little bit of avocados. Some of the yogurt we talked about. And you can add some cilantro too, I like that myself.
There we go. There's that plating that Chef Jeff always does for us. Thank you so much, Chef Jeff.
Anyway, let me make one real fast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for that beautiful recipe.
Mm-hmm.
We are all so excited to try it.
Wow, that's better than I thought. The vegetables turned out really nice and crispy, yet still juicy, adding a whole bunch of flavor to the chili red sauce recipe. Oh my gosh, you guys got to try this. It's really good.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, go check out your local farmers market, add some different vegetables. If you do, please let us know. Check out our Facebook page, give us any pictures that you guys had made for this recipe. We'd love to see what you guys are doing with this recipe. So with that, thank you again, Chef Jeff, for that demonstration and this beautiful recipe.
Thank you, and please like it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, please go ahead, if you have time after this video, to go ahead and fill out that survey. It is in the live chat right now. We also have it in the description box. Here is our code one last time before we leave today. Today's code is E101831. So again, please take that survey for us. We greatly appreciate it. But other than that, we hope to see you all again next week. So we'll be back next Thursday at 2 p.m. for another episode of Cooking Connected. We hope to see you all then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.